In a World Cup clash at Mumbai's Wankhede Stadium last evening, South Africa stunned defending champion England with a resounding 229-run victory. Was it 229? Yes. Oh, there wasn't a typo. The Proteas, led by Aiden Macram, extracted a measure of revenge for their 2019 World Cup loss to England. England's batting woes courtesy of brilliant bowling by World Cup debutants Coetzee and Giri and Jensen were the day's standout. As the key players like Bairstow, Root, Malan and Stokes struggled, however, Henrik Klaasen and Marco Jansen's remarkable 151 run partnership revived the Proteas, with Klaasen's exceptional 109 and Jansen's 75 of 42 balls anchoring the turnaround. Earlier, Rassie and Hendricks proved a strong start for South Africa despite the Knox exit. Quinton de Kock, yes, the man who's played at this home ground for 10 years for Mumbai Indians, left quite early, but that's how the story is. Captain Macram made a crucial contribution. England faced a formidable task to erase the memory of their Wankhede defeat, and cricket enthusiasts are eagerly awaiting Sunday's showdown between the hosts India and Black Caps in the picturesque Dharamshala, wondering what spectacle the technique unique venue will provide. Well, joining me are three important guests right now with me. Tasneem Granger, the national player for Zimbabwe. We also have Dafa Tyagi, the journalist and podcaster from Delhi. And right now we go to a former international West Indian cricketer, Raed Emrit, who's been a part of the international leagues for senior players. Well, Raed, I'm going to start off the show with you. New Zealand have often humbled India in ICC events in 2000. And in 2019, India got beaten, then came with the WTC event. Can today be a relief for the Kiwis for India? Your views?
New Zealand, India is probably the match of the tournament. It's probably a rehearsal of what we're going to see in the finals. Well, hopefully, we're thinking that's what it's going to be. I think though, India has been playing really good cricket. They're at home. They definitely have the crowd behind them. They're the 12th man. New Zealand, on the other hand, they've been playing bold cricket. They've been positive cricket. They are probably the team to beat. I'm going to go with New Zealand for this game.
Well, according to you, which India or New Zealand player battle could make this game very interesting, Raed?
Devon Conway hasn't really get off to the start that we're expecting him to get off to. He, I think, is going to be the key player for New Zealand. India, on the other hand, they have guys from 1 to 7 who can really destroy any bowling attack. But I still think Devon Conway is the guy who is going to be the guy to change the game.
Well, I'd like to come to my studio guest, Dafa Tyagi. Dave, what is your view about the match today? It's a big match, big Sunday, big blockbuster day for Indian fans.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning to all the Kiwi and the Indian fans wherever in the world you may be. Massive game on our hands today. A very picky, a very interesting challenge for India, of course. So far, they haven't really been able to get the better of New Zealand on as many occasions as they would have liked when it comes to the ODI World Cup. The wounds from the 2019 defeat are still somewhere fresh in our hearts, but today can there be a day where India find a way to get the better of key challengers in the form of Tom Latham, Trent Bolt and the likes. For that, however, we would not just need Virat Kohli, who has 1400 plus ODI runs to his name, to fire. We would need the middle order specialists like Shreyas Iyer as well as KL Rahul to fire, whose averages, by the way, against New Zealand are quite hefty, and they both have scored a century against this prominent team.
Well, Dave, staying on that, what do you think, how do you think the pitch is going to play today?
The pitch is going to play in a way where I'm sure there's going to be some interesting challenges for us. The key would be about preserving wickets and not just going bonkers from the ball one, because New Zealand are a percentage team, as my revered colleague Tasmin often says. Every player brings in something important. So India will have to be mindful of the fact that they just can't go bang bang from the ball one. It will be about preservation of wickets. There will be difficult phases where, for example, Trent Bolt, who's bowled around 15 maiden overs against India, would like to keep the runs in check. So India will have to work on those on the grind, convert the ones into twos, not just depends on the big boundary scoring areas. And of course, we would all hope for the informed Rohit Sharma to lead by an example. He's been in great form.
Tasneem, we've spoken and we've heard about the Indian, how great form they are in. I'd like to ask you, what about the Kiwis? What about their bowling and their batting prowess, considering that they are without the world-class skipper and batter?
Yeah, definitely. Good morning to you all. So brilliant here. I think it's one of the biggest tournament matchups personally. You have the two table toppers going head-to-head today, and you could think of it as a final before the final, actually. I think it's going to be a great game. You know, New Zealand in great form. As Dev has said, it is a percentage team, you know. If you look to the likes of, obviously, Daryl Mitchell, guys that to score runs, if they don't fire on the day, you have guys like Tom Latham waiting to stand up and take the onus upon themselves as well. In the bowling court, not to mention, you know, you have Trent Boult. Probably if they deal with him up front, you still have the likes of Matt Henry, you still have the likes of Lockie Ferguson waiting down the line to give them something as well.
Well, that's in Lockie Ferguson. What about Conway? He's been doing a great job.
Definitely. Devon Conway's been on the money for New Zealand. You know, I think you can't take much away from the way he's been playing. His form leading up to here may have not been the greatest, but he's having a splendid World Cup for me as far as I'm concerned. Another thing to remember right now is Lockie Ferguson has taken 9 wickets thus far in the World Cup. But if he hasn't found himself effective up front in the first 10 overs, he's actually taken 6 of those 9 wickets after the 33rd over. So that still tells you, especially on the pitch today, that's been offering a lot to the seamers out there. I think he still has the effect to come in at any given period in time today and be able to produce something for New Zealand.
Well, absolutely. I'd like to ask you I'd like to ask Dev Tyagi. Dev, just want to understand how will the pitch play for spinners today? They will be like really rooting to get in that important part.
It will be an interesting matchup between Ravindra Jadeja and somebody like Mitchell Santner, who's just recently produced the most successful returns ever by a Kiwi spinner. So I think there's going to be something on the pitch. However, having said that, when it comes to New Zealand batting, I would just like to add an important statistic. Tom Latham, sir, needs 82 runs to complete 4,000 ODI international runs. The most runs that he's actually scored in his ODI career against any team have actually come against us, India.
Well, that's an interesting point. Now we go on to our segment where we talk about where the teams are going, what is the matchup. We've spoken about the matchup, and we have here Tasneem Granger. Granger, let's understand the first 10 overs between India and New Zealand. And we've got to look at how India plays, especially when it comes to the opening power play. Your views?
So definitely we're going to take a look at their bowling phase by phase right now, first off to start off. Definitely, you know, super economical for India up at the top for them. One thing you must remember is they have the likes of Jasper Bumrah at the top of their order. Siraj hasn't quite fired for them yet as well, but one thing you must remember, this is one of those points for India where they do seem to take quite a lot of wickets. They are pretty economical as well. But I'm going to set you aside to just look at New Zealand for a moment. New Zealand has only used a total of 17 bowlers. Already this gives me the understanding and the feeling that they have the experience in their first 10 overs. They're still using bowlers that they've had for a couple of years. So the big match temperament for them is definitely not going to be an issue for them today up front with their seamers.
Well, let's talk about 11 to the 40th over, where India has played 47 odd matches, but let's look at the number of bowlers that they've bowled. Yes, they have been looking at the rotation and everything. Unfortunately, the screen from the PCR is not very clear right now, but we will go on to a better screen. Yes, that looks better. Let's talk about the number of runs scored vis-a-vis the wickets taken, and this important block of 11 to 40 overs is where the match is decided. Yes, that's
so one thing to definitely take note of for India here is you must realize in the 11 to 40th over, this is where they predominantly take most of their wickets, as well as this is the same stage whereby most of their spin bowlers are bowled. So this automatically is going to tell you how effective the spin bowlers are for India today. I think they're going to play a big role definitely today. You can see they've taken 5 wickets as opposed to New Zealand's 4 right about there. So it's going to be a big deal for India as well today to be able to come in and not only take wickets, but to be able to dry out the runs as well.
Well, we've spoken about the batting, bowling. Let's give a little bit of thought about the batting itself, because batting is the key part here. Who's going to decide which side is going to be dominant from the word go? Let's look at 1 to 10 overs right now in the batting part.
So definitely India, you can see crazy strike rate of 87.92.
This is the first 10 overs, 87.
0.9, yeah, definitely. That's something that's going to tell you that they do come out and tee off. You have the likes of Rohit Sharma that's willing to jump on anything that's short as well and just capitalize on that. You have the brilliant cover drive as well of Virat up the top of the order. Those are things to consider. However, this again, I will come back and tell you, is not the most difference between their runs in between New Zealand and India. So there is going to be the factor today of how patient are the Indian batsmen willing to be at the top of the order in the first 10.
Well, when you look at the second over, the second 11 to 40, you have batters there are like 40 batters for India, which is very great side. But they've also scored majority number of runs, which is 7,304. I hope the viewers can see this. If not, we're going to repeat the numbers so that it becomes easier. 7,304, 91 is the strike rate and 43 is the average. But the more important part here is that balls per boundary is 10.3, which means that India suddenly picks up the momentum. You want to talk about the second leg of the match?
Yeah, definitely. So India here is able to actually work their way around it. We have seen them have times where the boundaries may not be coming, as you said, 10 balls per boundary. But what they are comfortable doing is running hard and hitting the gaps as well. They do have the guys down there in the middle order, especially if they haven't lost wickets from the top. You will have the likes of Virat Kohli pushing fielders and actually taking them on, hitting the sweepers hard and looking to run twos hard extremely. But one thing you must realize here, the difference between their averages with New Zealand at this point are not that big. So one thing you must know is New Zealand as well is willing to grind. Take on the fielders, take on the boundaries. But for me, the big key is going to be who has the bigger middle overs, big hitters on their side.
Well, big hitters, big middle over. Let's come to the last part, which is the 41 to the 50th over, and just explain it to our viewers, fans, exactly how the things explode. Considering what South Africa played yesterday, if you look at the last 7-8 overs, they scored 125 runs, which is a sort of a benchmark. Don't you think so, Tasneem?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen so far this World Cup that a lot of teams, it's crazy because in the first 1 to 10 overs, you have teams scoring anywhere between 60 to 80 runs, top max. But the next thing you see is in the last 10 overs of the game, 100 has somewhat sort of become the par. And I think this is only achievable or only possible the moment you have wickets in hand.
So that's how the build-up for the Indian team is. They consolidate. They go very aggressive in the first 10 overs. Then when you look at the screens, they consolidate in the middle, hold on to the wickets, do the running between the wicket very fast, and then they go on and suddenly explode and take the bowling attack to the cleaners in the last 9 overs. And suddenly that has become the template for this World Cup, where in 10 overs, it's 100 plus score. And any team, if you've seen 87% of the teams who've scored over 100 runs in the last 10 overs have been victorious. Let's move on to the next slide and understand where this match is progressing. What are the current table standings here? Again, an interesting player who's going to get India into trouble, Trent Bolt. Just take us through his facts, figures, and the bowling that he makes Indians very uncomfortable.
So definitely, he's dismissed Rohit Sharma 4 times out of their encounters currently. Virat Kohli 3 times as well, and his best bowling figures against India is 5 for 21. So I'm going to just let you know something about Trent Bolt. So far as the World Cup started, he may not be firing on all cylinders. He may not have been as exceptional. But what a time, what a game to be able to come alive during this World Cup, definitely.
Tell them how they preserve themselves, because most of the fast bowlers who have not come to the party is a deliberate plan from the team management not to use them. Just take us through that process in the team management
yeah,
discussion.
definitely. You know, you have management want to manage overs, want to manage the amount of workload that you have on your seam bowlers as well. I think it's pretty straight up for New Zealand. You know, they're willing to bring in the likes of Matt Henry early on up front. You know, he gets good swing as well. He's got the height as well, and he's got the speed. So they would not ideally look to bowl Trent Boult maybe 5 overs on the trot. Just give him something as well, but to save him as well, to come back in the death overs later in the game and see for him to clean up the tail or come through and break a partnership with him.
Well, this becomes increasingly important for India and New Zealand because these are the top 2 teams of the tournament. The virtual number 1, number 2 teams, even in the standing right now. New Zealand has played 4, India has played 4. Both the teams have won all their matches. But the differentiator here is the net run rate. So for the benefit of our fans, again explain why winning with margin, why winning with a lot of wickets in hand helps them.
So definitely, the less wickets you actually lose during a match, as well as the margin of the runs, is a big contributor to your net run rate. Because this is the average performance overall factor. You might find a case where teams are actually tied in points going down the log. For example, after this game, New Zealand and India, there will only be 1 person left undefeated so far in the tournament.
So it's the tryst with the tournament that we are looking at. Both the teams are at the same points table right now. And yes, it's only the net run rate that differentiates the two on this. Also look at what South Africa has done. Nobody had given them a chance. But look at them. Four matches, 3 wins, 1 loss. And look at their net run rate, which is increasingly high. Australia has crept back after the match against Pakistan, who was on the 4th position. They take a stumble down. But guess what? Cricket is a great leveler, as they say. And look at England at the bottom, almost at the bottom, the 9th position. The World Cup champions, the World Cup contenders for this year. Look at their stats. It's a shadow of what their promise that was before this World Cup. And a friend of ours and a host, David Brooks, mentioned that playing the inconsequential hundreds and the T20 games will never get them ahead in the World Cup. And I think that prophecy has got it right. England, the world champions, are at 9. Look at the irony. Even the Netherlands, who won 1 match, are ahead of them. And so is the Sri Lankans. Now, let's take a step back and look at where we would get the threat from. You have 2 teams at 8, 1 team at 6, 2 teams at 4 each, and then you have rest of the other 5 teams at 2 points. So which means that as we progress from here, every game is going to become important because of the net run rates, and if the teams are tied, this comes into play. Therefore, India has to win next 3 matches. Let's look at the matches that other teams have and look at the standing. Can we change it to the next slide, please? It's very interesting the way how England has fallen, Tasneem.
Definitely. You know, I think for me, it's almost like you took Australia and just switched them around with England on the table, just overnight, you know. And just to give you a heads up, India's next 3 matches, they have New Zealand today, England, Sri Lanka, South Africa, and the Netherlands. Those are their following matches to come.
So after New Zealand, if you go ahead, we'll get to see the slides. If you go ahead, you will see the next match between India and
England.
Yes, that's going to be the key match again at Lucknow on the 29th of... yes, this is what the pitch looks like. Let's look at how the pitch behaves. From 0 to 10 overs, you have an economy of 4.75 for the Pacers, and it's 5.58. Now, just take us through this economy chart, Tasneem.
Okay, so what this is basically going to give you an idea of more or less how much work batsmen need to be doing, in the first 10 overs. So something that's very important here is the economy of 4.75 means that batsmen need to grind out there. They need to stick it out. It tells you there's a lot on offer for the Pacers. We have seen a lot of swing and movement out there today. So definitely I have my money on Bumrah to cause a bit of early drama, especially up front. Then you move down and you keep going and you see 11 to 40, it gets a bit harder out there. You can see batsmen probably being able to accelerate, probably you taking more singles in this period because it's at a stage where the field has actually spread out open. But look at the last 10 overs for me. This is where the games are won.
This is where we were talking about the sudden explosion, and from 4.75 in the first power play, you go on to actually close to 7 runs and over, and this is where the pitch plays and comes into play. Can we go on to the next slide, please, and look at the other part very importantly? Yes. New Zealand, on the other hand, we've discussed about where India is going to play, how India is going to shape up. Let's look at New Zealand. How after this match, which is on the 22nd, they're going to play again at Dharamshala against the Aussies, which means that New Zealand by now, this Dharamshala ground becomes their home pitch.
Definitely. You know, 2 big games obviously for New Zealand shaping up. They got India today and they got Australia straight after that.
South Africa is no, spring chicken for them. So is Pakistan, the mercurial Pakistan. In fact, if you look at New Zealand, all the 5 matches from henceforth are going to be difficult, which means that India has a chance of topping. Now, yesterday we discussed very importantly, if India tops the chart, India is going to play the 4th team of the matchups. Yes, we'll go on to the next part. Look at this. This is where we will end our show right now, but let's look at where India stands right now. You have New Zealand, England, Sri Lanka, South Africa, and Netherlands. So you have 3 easy chances for India after this.
Definitely.
As compared to New Zealand's 5 tough matches. You want to take us through this?
Yeah, definitely. So I think they will be definitely looking to stamp authority today against New Zealand and find themselves at the top of the table. Worst case scenario, they have a chance at redemption against possibly England, and I'd say the Netherlands for now. I don't write off Sri Lanka just yet. They may not be playing the best cricket, but we do know that they do have that habit of wanting to come in and cause those big team upsets for me.
Let's stay here for a minute now. How is the camp and the thought in England, considering they've lost? They've been suddenly the favourites, the world champions, the big pundits of the game. Now suddenly they've fallen from the grace. How do you think they would react to the Indian
I
onslaught?
think they're definitely going to look to come back fighting. You know, it's one thing to be at the bottom of the log and keep losing. We've seen it happening with Australia at the start. But once you face a big opposition like India, that's in great form, if you happen to be finding yourself on the winning side, it feels like you've got a bit of pride consolidation to be able to walk away with at the end.
Who's topping the charts? Is it India or New Zealand after a fortnight from now? What's your guess?
I think this one's pretty hard. I'm going to be willing to wait this out and see. You know, big game on our hands today. And I think it's more or less going to be one of those deciding factors that lets us know the tempo of the World Cup table.
India or New Zealand? What's your verdict? It's a tough one. You're pinned to the bat.
Definitely. I think I'm going to go with the Kiwis. You know, I started the tournament with them and
well,
I'm
on
going
that
to be
note,
loyal.
There's a disagreement here at the big wall. One says Kiwi, the heart says India.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.